YouTube vinyl community, David Bowie fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we are here today to talk about probably my favorite David Bowie album of all time, 1977's Low. Now, this particular album I'm very, very stoked to have because this is the first time I've ever owned this album on vinyl. I've been looking for it since 2004 or 5, and I've come across it twice. And each time I've come across it, it was beat to hell, and there was no way I was going to have this album totally destroyed. And so I just found this album yesterday at a record show, and it's a Japanese pressing from 1977. It's in like the most gorgeous shape I could ever imagine, and it sounds absolutely phenomenal. So just wanted to get that off the bat, right off the bat. Bat twice. That's how we do it here on the Giggens channel. Look at this cover. This is such a cool picture. I've always loved this album cover. Just one of my favorite eras of Bowie, and the reason why I bought a red Strat was because of the Be My Wife video. That was why I started playing that guitar, was because of this. So, a little bit of history here. This is Bowie's 11th album, which is crazy because by 1977 he'd been doing this pretty regularly since like 1969 or something, so 11 albums is a lot. And there was no signs of slowing down or any sort of like, lack of quality in his work. If anything, this was one of the best periods musically of his life, that Berlin trilogy. And let me explain that a little bit. So this album came out January 14th of 1977, and it was the first of his Berlin trilogy, which was also with Heroes and Lodger, 77 and 79 respectively. This was produced by Tony Visconti, and he collaborated really heavily with Brian Eno on this record. And I seriously think if it wasn't for this album, we would have never had Fear of Music by Talking Heads. I think this album had to exist for that one to exist. I think the two have a lot in common. That would be a fun one to review. Maybe I'll do that one soon. I'm a big Talking Heads fan. Anyways, this album was made because Bowie moved out of LA to get away from doing an abundant amount of cocaine, where he was very highly addicted to it. And he wanted to move somewhere else to get away from it, start over, try to clean up his act, and ended up moving to Berlin, which happened to be like the heroin center of the world, but luckily enough, he was not into heroin, so that never affected him. He was going through marriage problems at this time, and just generally feeling terrible because you're going through withdrawals and getting over an addiction. So there's rumors that his mood during this time was in fact low, and so that's where the album name came from. Like I said, his marriage was falling apart, and he recorded most of this album in France, and then a lot of it also in Germany, in Berlin. I think Heroes was the only one that was like totally done only in Germany. But, yeah, let's just get into this thing. So, the first song on this album, I went to look for the back, but there's nothing back there because it's just blank. I should know this thing by heart by now. Speed of Life is the first song on this album, and I absolutely adore how this album starts off. It just fades in and gets this really slushy synth, playfully splashing underneath sharp guitar phrases, and really soulful, heavy and steady drums that are they're like the tight glue that keeps everything together on this track. There's really light, airy synths that bleed in and out, and add sort of like a moon glow effect to the atmosphere of this track, which brings you into a whole new world for Bowie. Having come from Station to Station, which was pretty heavily, like a guitar-based album, to hear something done almost completely with synthesizers, I think at that time must have been like a very sort of either uncomfortable or totally new feeling for his fans. He's really into krautrock and ambient sounds and prog rock and art pop and all this other kind of stuff. Avant-garde music, all shine through this thing. This first song is just 3 minutes of spaced out psychedelic fun bliss, if you ask me. And then it completely shatters into Breaking Glass, which is like, it's got this really slinky guitar riff that, over this propulsive dance drum beat, really bumpy bass going up and down, call and response vocals with a synth, and Bowie's vocals are both casual and methodically precise in this really condensed track. There's a lot happening in a very small amount of time. What in the World has this cool, like, bubbly synth thing going on in the background that never lets up, and it's instantly catchy, it's weird, it's fun, there's some great background vocals that he does. I think there's harpsichord in the chorus, which gives it a really interesting, like, Baroque pop feel to it. And again, Bowie's fantastic vocals are, like, slightly slacker, but they're also, like, really tight at the same time. And the vocal choruses at the end of this thing are just fun and full of life. You know, what in the world can I do? What in the world can I do? I'm in the mood for your love. It's just so good. And then the next song, Sound and Vision, is easily one of Bowie's best songs ever. You know, it sounds like a train letting off steam the whole time. And, you know, more excellent guitar riffs. One thing I do love about this album, the guitars have what I want to call like a talking guitar feel. There's so many riffs on this thing that you can hum. It's almost like a George Harrison guitar solo throughout the entire thing. You can hum the riffs and be like do 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 do, and you know what song you're talking about. Yeah, don't you ever wonder sometime about Sound and Vision? Always crashing in the same car. This is the first like quote unquote slow song on this album. And to me, this sounds slightly Ziggy-ish. Like I can see like if Ziggy was still around, this would be a song he might do, or maybe Aladdin Sane might do. You know, I love the cool again talking guitars, really really big bright drums on this thing, and the phasing synths that just weep in and out. Bowie sings calmly and collectedly, and the occasional yeah that comes out is like it's just so him. Be My Wife is the next track on this thing. It's just excellent musicianship all over this track. You know, it's a rocker, it's loose, it's tight at the same time. There's this vaudevillian piano that comes snaking through in the beginning. There's soloing happening throughout. The bass is all over the place, up and down. Really, really smooth chorus with that shimmering hi-hat cymbal. And, you know, when we get to that very last line, sometimes it gets so lonely and that guitar just shreds through you. It's like, oh my God, what an amazing song. But yeah, like I said, that video is the reason why I ended up buying a red Strat when I was like 18 or 19 years old. He looks very skeletal in that video, but that Strat, man, that's a cool guitar. A New Career in a New Town. So this ends side one. And I love this song because most of the music here on out came from his movie Man Who Fell from Earth. And he gave all this music to the people who were making the movie, and they were like, no, I think we're going to go with John Phillips stuff instead. But can you imagine being a producer and be like, oh, David Bowie wrote music for this movie that he's starring in? Nah, we're good. We're good. Get out of here, Bowie. But I wrote all this great music. I'll show them, you see. I can't do a good Bowie voice. I'm working on that. But this song, I think, is really cool because it's all very synthy, very spacey. But then you get this like great grassroots feel, like the harmonica that comes in eggs on this simplicity of like a very entrepreneurial spirit of, you know, this Americana feel of going somewhere new and trying to discover yourself, and calling it A New Career in a New Town, I think is a perfect title for that. Warzawah starts off the second side, and this is a mostly Brian Eno track with flourishes of Bowie throughout. But I love this song. It gives like this ambient, lost in a foreign planet feel, with like looming danger, you know, always imminent. But there's like a beauty to the discovery, and there's like, you know, this discovery of like what had been or what could be, and a delicate and cautious curiosity that, you know, you're in this new world and you're discovering it one slow footstep at a time. I really like that feeling. Art Decade, to me, this album's Let's Go Away for a While, like the Pet Sounds track. There's moments where it's very reminiscent of that. I get that feeling from it. But again, it sounds like you're just drifting aimlessly in outer space, kind of knowing you might never get back to your old life and like thinking about things in a nostalgic way. Weeping Wall, I think this is a really cool track. Awesome xylophones in this thing, and this really fuzzy psychedelic synth that plays along with it. They paint a picture of life, like a time in life passing by. It almost sounds like something St. Vincent would record these days, but you know, she'd put her vocals on top of it and make it this weird ambient avant-garde art pop kind of moment. Echoey, distant guitars kind of stab over the breaks, and kind of shake up the constant xylophone action happening underneath, and there's this wordless vocal thing that happens pretty often, and they trail over this spooky theremin-esque kind of thing happening. I love the themes on this song. I think it's a very interesting track. And the last song on this album, Subterraneans, this is, I think, a really fitting way to end side 2. It's mostly tons of strings on this song. And slight computer-y sounding sounds, which I think is cool. You know, it almost sounds like a spaceship that's leaving the planet and was just on after having scoped it out. And as they're exiting the atmosphere, they're looking back down at it and thinking like, oh, were we really there? It's got this weird, like, I can't believe we did that feeling. But it's like sort of melancholy at the same time. The album ends with this really cool sax solo and then just vanishes. Completely just trails off again. Just as the album starts with a fade in, this ends with a fade out. Yeah, excellent, excellent track. So I want to show you the inside of this thing because it is a Japanese copy. And so it's got this really cool insert. And it's got the words in the back, and they're actually pretty on point. They're pretty good. Sometimes the translations are a little shaky, but these are pretty good. And then it's all in Japanese on the inside there, so I have no idea what that says. And it's got the old RCA look to it, but it's just an absolutely gorgeous looking album. There's like close to nothing wrong with it visually, scratch-wise or anything. So I was more than stoked to finally have this thing on vinyl. Now I know they reissued it recently, but I don't know. I've been looking so long for an original that getting a reissue for me just wasn't gonna do it. So yeah, this has easily become one of my most prized possessions, I'd say. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely adore this album. It's one of my favorite Bowie albums ever. If I had to pick one, this probably would be the one. So to finally have it on vinyl, it just means the world to me. I discovered this album when I was, I think, 17 or 18, and I was at FYE, and they had a used copy of it. And I remember somebody at school had talked about it, and I never heard of it. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll like keep an eye out for that. And I came across the CD, and I picked it up, and it just blew my mind. Like, it took you to a whole different place that there's not a lot that sounds like this, especially from Bowie. But yeah, I absolutely love this album. So for me, personally, this is a 10 out of 10 for me. It's completely one of my favorite albums he's ever made, and probably one of my favorite albums by anyone. This is up there. I really love the feel. I love the aesthetic. I love the orange. I think it's just cool. The synths on here, the guitars, the big, bright, punchy drums. The production on this thing is absolutely fantastic and mesmerizing, and it makes you want to hear it over and over again. So that's it. This is Bowie Low on RCA Records, 1977. One of my favorite albums by him. So thank you so much for watching, guys. This has been Album Reviews with me, Giggens, and Bowie Low. That's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.